Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Community of Practice meeting. This is Shannon Edom speaking. I'm a project coordinator for WINTAC, and we'll be going through some housekeeping slides before we get started. The audio for today's webinar is being broadcast through your computer. Please make sure your speakers are turned on or your headphones are plugged in. You can control the audio broadcast via the audio broadcast panel. If you accidentally close the panel, you can reopen by going to the Communicate menu, top of the screen, and choosing Join Audio Broadcast. If you do not have sound capabilities on your computer or prefer to listen by phone, dial 1-415-655-0001, meeting code 660-484-687. Note, you do not need to enter an attendee ID. Real-time captioning is provided during this webinar. The captions can be found in the Media Viewer panel, which appears in the lower right corner of the webinar platform. If you do not see the captions, you may need to open the Media Viewer panel by selecting the Media Viewer button on the upper right corner of the webinar platform. If you want to make the Media Viewer panel larger, you can minimize other panels like Chat, Q&A, and/or Participants. For Q&A, please use the Q&A panel to send any questions you have during the webinar, and we will direct the questions accordingly during the Q&A portion. If you are listening by phone and not logged into the webinar, you may also ask questions by emailing them to Shannon Edom at sedam@ndi-inc.org. Please note, this webinar is being recorded and the materials will be placed on National Disability Institute's website at www.realeconomicimpact.org. If you experience any technical difficulties during the webinar, please use the chat box to send a message to NDI admin or email Shannon Edom at sedam@ndi-inc.org. This Community of Practice meeting is being hosted by Nikki Powis, a Training and TA Manager for WINTAC at the National Disability Institute.
Thanks, Shannon. And I am not too sure if it's a glitch on my end, but I'm still only seeing the title slide. Can we just verify that it's just me and that everybody else is seeing the slide moving? Maybe, Brian, you could let me know.
I just see my slides are not moving either currently.
Okay, all right. So Shannon, right now it looks like we're only seeing the title slide. It's not moved. So I will keep talking and introduce everybody, but just so that you're aware too, then, because it looks like it's not moving for anybody. Okay, so yeah, okay, that sounds great. So welcome to the Community Practice for Inclusive Career Pathways, and as you know, today we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship and small business development, and we actually have somebody from Alaska Vocational Rehabilitation here who's going to be talking in a little bit and explaining how they've sort of operationalized some of that under WIOA and a Career Pathways framework. So I'm super excited about that. In the meantime, just want to sort of introduce you to the team. We don't have pictures of the team up here yet, but hopefully we will in a minute. So myself, Nikki Powis, as Shannon had said, from WINTAC, which for those of you that are not familiar is the Workforce Innovation Technical Assistance Center, and we are funded by the Rehabilitation Services Administration to provide technical assistance and training to vocational rehabilitation agencies throughout the country. Many of you, I've seen several names I recognize in the attendee list, so many of you are already working with our team. Also, we have as part of the team, Rebecca Salon, who is with the LEAD Center, and she's going to tell us a little bit about the LEAD Center in just a second. Brian Ingram, who's also with the WINTAC and our newest team member, so welcome, Brian, great to have you. And then our newest organizational team member is Pam Williamson from the Southeast ADA Center, and just really super excited to partner with their organization and bring an ADA Center's sort of slant onto this career pathways practice, and have another person at the table to help with the planning and the organization around this. So I think now, losing my mind here because it's throwing me off with these slides.
Nikki, can you see the correct slide?
I cannot. I can see still the title slide. I mean, is it just Brian and I? Maybe a few of the folks, attendees, could type in and let us know what you're seeing, just to make sure. You know, I don't want to make a big deal out of it if it's just a couple of us. Rebecca, Pam, do you want to let us know what you're looking at right now? Oh, there we go. Brilliant. It works. Okay. Did that work for you too, Brian?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Oh, yep. Someone said they're moving now. Thank you so much. Yeah, you know, I always say it's not a national webinar with hundreds of people if we don't have technical problems, right? So just go with the flow. All right, so now you can see us. So you can see Rebecca there with the Lead Center, Brian, and myself with WinTech, and Pam Williamson with the Southeast ADA Center. So I'm going to just briefly turn things over to Rebecca so she can tell you a little bit about LEAD and how to connect with LEAD. Are you there, Rebecca? Well, maybe more problems than one. So, Rebecca, if you do get back in and you want to just let us know, we're showing you on mute right now. So you can take yourself off mute and jump in and interrupt me. Otherwise, I'm going to just mention that this is the Lead Center. The website is there. If you're not familiar with their Drive website, there's amazing amounts of resources. I use that website all the time myself, actually. And to follow them, their Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube is there. And then the contact information underneath there with Rebecca and the other members of the LEAD team. So we'll just move on then, and then if Rebecca wants to jump in at a later point and mention anything, that'll be great. So do you want to move on, Shannon? I think next is WinTech. And I already mentioned that WinTech is the Workforce Innovation Technical Assistance Center funded under the Rehab Services Administration. Here's our website. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And as I already mentioned, you know, we're really here to help and support VR agencies to have that individualized and ready access to technical assistance as you move through all the nuances of WIOA. So if you haven't already contacted us, please do. There is a link here to all the state liaisons. So if your state isn't currently working with us and you'd like to find out how we can support and help you, you can click on that link and you will be taken to who your actual overall liaison is for your state. And I didn't mention at the beginning, I think, because like I said, I was a bit thrown off with the slides, but the community of practice itself, we have not only this offering of every other month where we're bringing you things that you've asked for and information that is relevant to the work that you're doing so that we can have sort of an exchange and share some best practices. But we also, through the wintech.org website, through the community of practice area, have an online place where you can sign up, join the community, and participate in a forum, find some resources, things like that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Pam Williamson so that she can give us a little brief overview of the Southeast ADA Center. So take it away, Pam.
Thank you so much. As Nikki said, I am Pam Williamson. I'm the Assistant Director of the Southeast ADA Center and we're very happy to be a new partner with this team. The Southeast ADA Center is funded by the National Institute on Disability Rehabilitation, Independent Living, and Research. I think I messed up letters there, but you get the idea. And but we provide technical assistance, guidance, and training on the Americans with Disabilities Act for anyone that has rights and responsibilities under the law. And we are a part of the Burton Blatt Institute at Syracuse University, and we're also a member of the ADA National Network, which has regional centers across the country that do the same thing we do. And the Southeast ADA Center has been doing quite a bit of work around career pathways, vocational rehabilitation, students, and employment professionals. And as you see, we are connect with us via our website, Facebook, and YouTube, as well as by phone and email. So again, we're looking forward to working with the team, and hope to be able to connect with some of you in the future.
Great, thanks so much, Pam. And as I said, you know, we're really excited to have you and the ADA Center join us. It's a great added bonus. So what we're going to take a quick look at now is sort of just revisit career pathways. I'm sure most of you on the phone by now are pretty familiar with career pathways under WIOA and the sort of definition and what that means to your work. But we wanted to just do a brief recap, especially for some newer folks to this work that may not completely have a full spectrum of understanding. So the full definition can be found in WIOA Section 3, Definition 7. And the term means a combination of rigorous and high-quality education, training, and other services. So really that sort of concoction, that holistic view of not only the education and training, but also those supports and other services that are needed to help an individual really be successful within a career that has some upward mobility and trajectory towards economic self-sufficiency, which obviously is what we're all striving for individuals with disabilities. So WIOA has sort of outlined these several areas aligning with the skill needs of industry. And in a minute, Brian's going to dive a little deeper into some of these and sort of talk about, you know, what does that mean and what exactly are VR agencies doing within the context of that to move things forward. Preparing an individual to be successful in any number of training type environments, remembering that career pathways isn't just post-secondary ed. You know, the high school completion, on-the-job training, any type of work-based learning is all a part of the preparation for successful entry into a career pathway, including counseling and those wraparound services and making sure that everybody is supported, including education offered concurrently with workforce preparation. So not just about the education, but making sure that it's, again, a holistic look at the whole person and their ability to be a contributor to the workplace. Organizing education, training, and other services, enabling an individual to attain that secondary school diploma, which is really the framework to start the career pathways, getting that high school diploma, staying in school, which of course PREETS is geared towards, and then helping an individual enter or advance. So this is the sort of formal regulatory definition. Brian's going to delve a little bit deeper for just a few minutes, and then we're going to move on to hear about how Alaska is really operationalizing some of these things. So Shannon, you want to move to the next slide? And Brian, take it away to break it down.
Thanks, Vicki. Hey, and thanks everyone for joining us today. So let's break it down. Let's move beyond the regulations to implementation and service flow. What does implementing career pathways mean for you and the people who receive your services? How can this strategy complement what you currently do or present you with new opportunities to serve your customers and attain common performance measures? Now, I have no doubt that many of you are already incorporating some of these things into your work and into your WIOA implementation of career pathways. And we're going to welcome and encourage you to type in the chat any additions, ideas, innovations, or comments that you might have as we go. But no matter how comfortable you are with these concepts or how far you've gone towards incorporating them into your services, it never hurts to review. So let's take a look. And Shannon, you can move the slide. Okay. Career pathways are intended to encourage and expand the number of students, job seekers, and workers who earn industry-recognized post-secondary credentials that correspond to the skill needs of employers in high-demand industry sectors. Whew. In other words, connect job seekers to trainings and certifications that are relevant to the needs of employers who currently have unmet needs for skilled labor, right? So here's some questions. Do you have an established procedure with expectations on how counselors are in touch with the labor market? Does it go beyond placement to looking at more self-sustaining career with opportunities for growth in the area that the individual chooses to live and work? Do you have separate and unique staff outside of your counselors serving the business customer? If so, is there a communication protocol for staff performing business outreach functions to communicate information on employer needs with your counselors? The counselors that are developing plans to ensure the IPE supports both individual goals with identified milestones, but can also provide employers with well-prepared and skill-ready employees that meet their needs. So incorporating targeted trainings, work-based learning, pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship opportunities that position the consumer to meet specific business needs not only helps the customer, but establishes VR as a viable pipeline for a prepared workforce and increases the potential of employers for returning for more workers at a later date. Okay, Shannon? All right. Long-term economic trends point to increasing demand for better educated workers. Career Pathways programs include a full range of secondary adult education and post-secondary education options, like registered apprenticeships, for example. And again, position a consumer to benefit from trainings and certifications that will make them qualify for positions in growth industries. You know, this is a corner piece of the puzzle, right? I kind of like how this slide's laid out because it states the things I know you're already doing, like providing career navigation and support services, supporting secondary school completion, which is a big part of the pre-eds, right? And identifying all available training options. But it goes on to include things that might not currently be standard in considering what to include in your IPE, like taking a look at registered apprenticeships or building a plan that includes multiple outcomes and resources over a longer time frame than traditional plans and allows for career advancement over time. This longer-term planning outlook might be new. So maybe we should look at it a little bit more closely on the next slide, Shannon. The plan. A plan that puts a job seeker on a career pathway needs to support them through a number of outcomes. And as we know, that is often going to start with assessment and education. Again, something that's likely a part of your eligibility and IPE planning process currently. Luckily, counseling and supports are key components of career pathways programs as well. So each consumer needs individualized academic and career planning to be a part of their IPE that shows the unique steps to reach his or her ultimate goal. Counseling should support an individual's journey through the pathway and provide roadmaps outlining the education and training that must be completed and the credentials that must be earned to reach the identified career goals. Ideally, each outcome is going to lead to the next, and the ultimate goal of sustainable employment on an identified career path. In this way, you can see how a well-thought-out IPE, considering both individual and business customer, can lead to achieving effective common performance measures, like a measurable skills gain, or achieving a credential, or meeting an employer need, or establishing a positive employer engagement, or effective and meaningful employment, and finally, maybe even retention. Okay, Shannon? So work-based learning experiences, internships, job shadowing, work experience, and OJT opportunities help students apply their knowledge, gain valuable hands-on experience, and the foundational skills necessary to succeed. And each job seeker, as we spoke of earlier, presents with unique strengths, learning styles, living situations, and experience. One size doesn't fit all. And in order to develop an IPE with a consumer, all available training and placement options and combinations of training and placement options should be on the table. For example, you might need to provide soft skills training while a job seeker attends a certification, then be open to setting up a paid work-based learning to transition a job seeker into that first stop on the career path that you've helped them to identify. Okay, Shannon, next slide. To continue on this vein, for many individuals, a typical semester-based college and university schedule may not meet the urgency to obtain a credential and find a job. Strategies that allow learners to simultaneously pursue multiple steps along the pathway can accelerate their progress while maintaining the quality and integrity of required learning. And again, flexibility is emphasized because there's many individuals who will fall into crisis if they don't obtain income quickly, right? As you're all aware, there can be variation in educational backgrounds between individuals. So being willing to consider work-based learning or a paid work experience in this context can allow an individual to confidently engage in a career path and work their way into a position where further, more conventional training can make sense. Okay, Shannon, next slide. Now, it's projected that by 2020, there will be 140 to 165 million jobs in the United States. 65% of those jobs are going to require a high school equivalency plus additional training or education. Therefore, a career pathways program needs to enable those without a high school diploma or its equivalent to attain one and be prepared to access this additional training and educational opportunities that are going to lead to additional credentials. Now, I say this to highlight the idea that the pre-ETS work your agencies are doing is actually very, very relevant to career pathways, both around high school attainment and career exploration. And it could give the youth that you're working with a huge step up on creating a post-secondary transition plan that puts them on a career path with the potential for full economic self-sufficiency. So pre-ETS could be the foundation on which to build career pathways. Next slide, please, Shannon. And this is my last slide today, folks. And so to sum up my section of the presentation, I'd like to say individuals with disabilities often face obstacles completing education and training programs and may need to take a break or deviate from their educational and career plans due to life circumstances. Career pathway programs provide individuals with multiple entry points to accommodate academic readiness and multiple exit points to allow individuals to obtain employment and return later for the next level of credential attainment, on-ramps and off-ramps, right? Ideally, a career pathway-focused IPE would have the potential to be long-term and incorporate multiple training and employment outcomes. In order to do this, customized training strategies may need to be considered, and multiple resources beyond those you control directly may need to be accessed by the individual that could benefit from support around partnering and coordination to obtain resources needed to implement such a long-term plan. This is where agencies may want to consider the integrated resource team approach and look to other WIOA integration requirements to achieve a more holistic strategy and approach to creating these long-term plans. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to my colleague, Nikki, so that we can take a look at some real-life examples of what we've been talking about. Nikki, are you ready to introduce our presenter?
I am, Brian, and thanks so much for giving us that walk back through WIOA and some of the regulatory aspects and how some of those things can really be operationalized. So sort of putting into theory into action career pathways on the flip side. So, you know, we think about career pathways in some of the frameworks of formalized education, apprenticeships, things like that. But and Alaska's certainly done that, and Jim's going to talk some about that. But, you know, the other thing that they've done is they've sort of also looked at the aspect of self-employment and small business development and entrepreneurship, and really sort of brought that into that space and moved a lot of things forward and really opened that up as a possibility for a lot of youth within Alaska. So if you want to move that next slide for me, Shannon, there's a picture of Jim. So Jim Crutchman is with the Alaska Vocational Rehabilitation Division there in Alaska. And I'm going to just turn it over to you, Jim, to talk about what you've been up to.
All righty. Thanks, Nikki. We can go to the next slide. You know, I know that small business concepts, entrepreneurship, I never would have put that in that category of career pathways. But, you know, if you broaden that view a little bit and try to look at what are we doing to prepare kids for success, then really this kind of approach to teaching, doing career pathways, is really going from teaching what you need to do to why you do it. And I think that's pretty important. I mean, even at a basic level of you need to give good customer support is one thing. This is why you give good customer support is a completely different thing. And I think when anyone understands, and especially students that are moving into work, why a business operates the way it does and why your actions and how your actions affect that success, it prepares you to be not only a successful employee, but give you chances for advancement and things like that. So if we're really looking for a career pathway that leads to riches at the end of the rainbow there, if you're an electrician, what's the best way to move up to making even more money? You become the owner of an electrical contracting company. So including that entrepreneur small business concepts within the career pathways is important, because entrepreneurship is really tough. And it's easy to go, I'm going to open my own company and be successful. But you need to understand those concepts of how to make that. And so I started looking at how can we do this, and ran into the Alaska Chamber of Commerce. And they operate a business week every year in Anchorage. And kids from all over the state, usually in between 50 and 75, come in. They spend a week working with business mentors. They develop they divide in groups. They develop a product. They work on their marketing and things like that. I thought we have a lot of interest here, and I'll get into Alaska specific in a little bit, with this whole idea of entrepreneurship. And I wanted to make sure that students with disabilities had an opportunity to participate. So we started marketing on the VR side on bringing kids in and letting them participate in this Alaska Business Week. The Alaska Chamber was pretty excited about the growth, because we had, out of the 50 kids, 16 of them had disabilities in the first session, and then another 8 in our second session. And it gave the Alaska Chamber an idea of, we can expand what we're doing, take this into high schools and do shorter versions. We can go into rural areas and do these kind of things. And so our partnership together has developed into it's something kind of exciting because, and let's go to the next slide, because I want to give you an idea of how things, the nature of rural Alaska. And, you know, we have 54 school districts in Alaska. 48 of those would be considered rural, and a large number of those would be considered remote. In other words, you got to have a plane or a boat to get there. And they're usually very, very small villages. 78% of Alaska natives and people living out in rural and remote areas rely on subsistence for a great part of their ability to exist out there, whether it's catching fish, whether it's hunting and things like that. And so when we look at career pathways, one of those tenets is aligns with skills and needs of industries. What do you do with a state where a large part of it has no industry? We surveyed special education directors across the state in conjunction with the Department of Ed. And responses we got to say the question, what do your students need to do to be prepared for a job after high school? The responses we got are, what's the use? There are no jobs here. They're never going to leave the village, so there's no point in this. And that's pretty darn scary when you think about these are the future kids, and the people that are educating them don't understand the areas they work in, and they don't understand how people work. So in an effort to come in and address this, and you know, we'd heard for years we need more self-employment and stuff in Alaska, we knew that we had two things to do. We had to provide something for kids to be able to learn how they could take their subsistence activities and turn that and monetize those things. And at the same time, we had to train teachers on how to teach to kids so that they could benefit in the area where they were, where there was no industry. I know you think of Alaska as crazy rich in natural resources. Last figure I saw, I think 2010, was $16 billion a year in natural resources, which means mining and fishing and things like that. But if you look at the state, you realize that a large part of the state isn't necessarily on the coast where you're fishing. Mines are usually located outside of urban areas where there isn't a community around that supports it. And the same with the oil. It's way up north where there aren't a lot of people living there, and very, very few people in rural Alaska actually work within those industries compared to the population in that area. So what we've done is created a 5-module course that can be taught within one semester easily by teachers, and it takes them through the 5 different modules. Are you an entrepreneur, which, you know, includes, you know, interest inventory on these are the traits of a good entrepreneur to help the kid decide. And then really the last 4 modules are divided in half. The first part of the first module, I mean the second module, is your goods and your service. It's teaching the kids what are goods, what are services. And the second part of that first model is we're really designing this to identify a product and move that from incubation all the way through implementing a very small business. It's really based around the idea of a pop-up or a lemonade stand, but can definitely be used for, say, a real school store or a real business. But it's really to get teachers and students working together on that and teaching teachers small business concepts and how they can teach their students how to do that. So when you think about how does this have an implication, well, if I'm out fishing and I catch an extra fish, I have a fish to sell now. So that whole idea of how do I take what I do here, and really each module walks the kids through thinking about what are my skills, what are my abilities, and then at the same time teaching them how a successful business can run. And by the end of it, they have developed a business plan and put that into action. Next slide, please. So we just rolled this out in February. So it's really brand new, and we'll be really pushing it this next school year. This was kind of our first introduction. Chefornak, Alaska is a small rural remote village way out there. It's about the same distance from New York to North Carolina, from Anchorage to Chefornak. And 3 teachers in Chefornak this year took School Store and implemented it with 15 kids with disabilities, and they had regular ed kids in there too, and they had different projects. Through that operation, they raised $1,000, and that $1,000 has gone to fund these 2 young people you see on your screen there in their own entrepreneur businesses that they identified why they were going through School Store. And so we had, outcomes that I really hadn't expected it to result in real small businesses starting right away. Can we go to the next slide? And the next slide. So, that's our effort to move out into more rural and be able to serve the entire state. And so I thought I'd also spend a little time talking about what we're doing that is more traditional career pathways. And of course, the basis of that is really partnerships, and the partnerships we've been able to make with different vocational training centers and different universities to be able to promote what we're doing. So we have partnerships with a number with the University of Alaska Southeast, Northeast Alaska Technical Training Center, another group called the Prince of Wales Vocational Technical Assistance Center, Excel Alaska, and Voyage to Excellence. They're all from university down to probably career technical education. What you all would think of as career technical education, things, a conglomeration of school districts, small school districts that get together to fund a technical assistance center. And so through our partnerships with these different entities, over 600 kids this last year participated in more of a hands-on learning. We were looking for, as we look at pre-EDs and the 5 different required activities, we wanted, the more we got into that and implementing pre-EDs, we really wanted to attach more value to what we were doing. And by value, I mean, it's one thing to sit in a classroom and go through some career exploration. We wanted kids to experience those things and learn workplace expectations and things like that from actually doing things instead of reading about it or being talked to about it. So all these technical assistance centers and the university's vocational center are all based upon the regional high demand occupation, and all of them incorporate employer participation from development of curriculum to providing apprenticeships and internships and job shadows and things like that. So these are all really connected to business and the people hiring in those areas. They all offer hands-on learning opportunities. that help kids identify their skills, not just what looks good, but a chance to touch it and feel it and experience it and know if that's something they like. All the courses that are provided by journeyman level instructors who can provide career counseling towards a career path. The really interesting thing, you know, when we approach this from people that are really have been in the industry and have now been moving, you know, into academia and teaching, is that these people have a life experience that more closely resembles the students that are coming in there than if you're just in with a teacher who really is trying to teach something that they have no life experience in. And we've had really interesting things of union reps who have been in prison within our juvenile justice system talking to kids in juvenile justice about these career pathways. So it's really powerful when someone who has lived the life is the one teaching what you're doing. The great thing about these is that a lot of the kids coming out of some of these programs are coming out with stackable credentials. Some of our programs at NACTAC and the university, kids come out of a program with NCCCR certifications, the first 5 in construction. You know, those are things when you're looking at, you know, what's it take to get into an apprenticeship? You know, and well, you got to have a high school diploma. Apprenticeships are always competitive, so kids coming into the apprenticeship that already have those stackable credentials behind them are more likely, you know, to come in. And the programs offer that tutoring and extra help to be able to gain those credentials that they're probably not going to get in other places. And kids coming out of our programming can take advantage of bridge programs through these same organizations that are closely associated with more post-secondary programs. And it's unusual, you know, a student that's in a rural Alaska, the idea of, you know, oh, it's easy, you just come to Juneau or Anchorage and go to the university. It's a crazy, crazy cultural shift to go from a small business to, I mean, a small community to a university system. So these bridge programs are very important because they bring the kids in, and the kids have an opportunity to experience life on the campus, to get accustomed to learn how to navigate a community. Some of these kids come from villages where there are no cars, much less a bus system to learn to navigate. They've never had to make doctor's appointments. They've never had to do a lot of things that kids in urban areas do. So these bridge programs, especially for these kids, and usually their academics are behind too, these bridge programs are so important to help kids be able to continue on and get those final certifications they need for, you know, career pathway typical industries. Do I have another slide?
Yeah, we moved to the next slide. Can you see it, Jim?
Oh, yeah. So, and then, you know, we do, this is more really kind of a basic level. We also run for Alaska, a very large summer work program. We had 192 kids participate in summer work this year. We use contractors, CRPs, independent living centers. We also have 3 school districts that participate with us in summer work. So we had over 100 businesses participate with us this year in, you know, bringing kids in and getting a, you know, that whole hands-on learning experience of, you know, whether they're, which incorporates a lot of career exploration, instead of in a book, it's, you see the kids there. They went to the fire station. The other kids went to the medical center, and they got to touch things, try out pressure cuffs and stuff like that. That's a very basic thing. But, that kind of getting out of the classroom, I think, is so important. When you look at our PETS expenditures, we were very heavy in the first year, 2 years with, with career exploration and soft skills training. Now, if you look at our as being predominant, now if you look at what we're spending, over 40% is being based on work-based learning and opportunities to be able to get out and really work in a workplace. Thought I'd touch on things that what we've learned through this journey. Kids prefer hands-on learning. When we did a 1-week career exploration activity with the University of Alaska Anchorage. This last year, kids in Juneau could choose one of 4 careers, construction, mining, maritime, and healthcare, and spend a week learning those things from college instructors who have been in the industry. And the feedback we got was from those kids, more hands-on, more hands-on. That's what they want to see, less talking at me and more doing. I think when kids go through that, and I call it developing a vision. When a kid spends a week immersed in a career possibility, they begin to develop a vision for their life. And I don't know that happens in a classroom when we're going to come in for 1 hour and we're going to do career exploration, and then next week we'll be back and we'll look at these careers. Really, I've seen the biggest change in kids when kids are immersed in something that's really all centered around them and gives them that vision and gets them out of the classroom. Other things we've learned is what I was surprised about is it's been really easy to develop these partnerships, mainly because we have, in a way, a shared goal. My goal, of course, is kids in there participating. Their goal is kids there participating. Of course, I had a person here at the Department of Labor goes, well, you know why they want to do it, because they want to make money. And, yeah, I think that's a good thing. They realize that when they partner with me, they're recruiting for their next program. UAS knows that if they can get 40 kids into a career exploration activity over spring break, there's a much better chance that they're going to capture that kid and move him into real career pathway training. And so, it's pretty darn easy to develop these kind of partnerships because they have a shared thing. I mean, the UAS thing was so successful, the chancellor actually showed up to see the kids there. The university spends tons of money bringing kids in for campus tours and stuff like this, and this was a really easy way for them to provide recruitment at that second level where kids were identifying things that they really had an interest in. They got a chance to touch it. They got a chance to find out what the work expectations were, and they got a chance to know what that next step was to move. How do I move forward in that career? And of course, the big number one message is stay in high school. Next slide. And I may be done now. There's my resources. I imagine Nikki and them have the website somewhere available for you all to look on. School Store Curriculum is right there on that page. You can open it up. The manual, teacher manual, and student manual are both online. And I usually get people emailing me, oh, Jim, can we have this? It's not copyrighted. It's free to anyone who wants to use it. Realize that School Store does incorporate some Alaska-specific training, but you can easily work around that. You can go to the next slide and sure.
Yeah, I think it might be your, we're going to resources. Yeah, so thank you so much. I mean, that was really amazing, and I love what you said about the entrepreneurship and the small business development, and really sort of having youth understand from the business perspective by doing it what makes, you know, a productive and valuable employee, even if they're not going to open their own business. And great that in that first session you had 2 youth actually develop their own business and do that. So, and I'm sure there'll be more to come, so watch that space. And then, you know, the point you made about really making things relevant for the youth to want to stay in school and seeing the purpose of what they're learning and why it's important. And I think, I know you don't have hard data on it, but I know anecdotally you're seeing, and the school districts are identifying that it is the youth who are going through these types of programs that are actually completing, and their high school completion rates are higher as a result, as a sort of anecdotal thing, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, all right, so we're going to open for questions. Just know that there's a slide. You can download the PowerPoint. There's some resources there. I'm not going to go over them. I really want us to get into the meat of people's questions. So I am kind of having a quick look through, and Shannon, I probably need to get your help with this because I'm having a bit of trouble with the Q&A window. A couple of people have asked for the PowerPoint presentation, and I think the link's been put in there. This presentation in its entirety will be the captioning and the recording and the PowerPoint will all be posted on the wintac.org website once we get the captioning completed. So within the next few days, that will be there. Let me just scroll down. I know that yeah.
I see a few questions. The first one that came through is, where can we find the software for the school store?
Okay, and it's not software. You had the resources there for the curriculum. Did you want to mention anything else, Jim?
No, I mean, if you go to the website and you click on learn more about School Store, you'll see that there's an FAQ page. You know, we do hire teachers to do this, and so they become what we call teacher vendors. And you can kind of see, you know, from that web page, the teacher manual, the student manual, which is really all someone needs, you know, to get rolling on that, the FAQ, and then really the process we use in, you know, a teacher understanding how they can become a vendor to teach School Store.
Great, thanks, Jim. Another question is, who determines eligibility once an application is received? And I'm not sure if they're talking about for any of these services or specifically for School Store. Serena, maybe you could clarify that a little bit, because I think, Jim, are you able, do you think, to answer that without
I mean, what's different about Alaska, and I won't go into all of, you know, all the details about it, but realize, you know, the qualifications for a spec ed teacher in rural Alaska is they have to be breathing. So it's pretty rough out there, and you know, so we serve probably more kids under potentially eligible, and we really make a distinction between that whole IEP 504 and potentially eligible. When a whole district is performing below standard, it becomes very gray on what, you know, when they can't afford the resources if they identified every kid with a disability. So the school district teaches to that level. So a lot of the kids we serve don't have IEPs, and they don't have 504 plans. We do potentially eligible, so there is no eligibility requirement. These are all pre-ET services delivered before application for regular VR services.
Okay, and you may have just answered this next question, which is how does a student apply for this or get more information on this?
So, we contract with teachers. So that teacher is responsible for, if they want to make $1,500, they've got to recruit at least 5 kids with a disability to be in there. I have a one-page pre-ETS, I'll call it an application or request for services that teacher has to turn in to be. So we require a minimum of 5 students to participate to deliver the service. Usually in these areas it's, we're 7, 8, 9 per teacher is kind of where we average.
Great, thanks. There was a comment that I wanted to share with you. Love what Jim said about work-based learning, helping to develop a vision for their life. So, yeah, that was a great comment. Let's have a look at once an application is received, what is the next process? I think you've really kind of, does a teacher have to be involved? Is there someone in the community that can help with this process?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can choose to implement this. I do have one. We have a parent resource center in Anchorage, and I do allow them to teach School Store and Jobs Club. These were both Jobs Club and School Store can be implemented anywhere, but they were really designed to be implemented in rural Alaska where there is no network of the teachers are really the only professional people there. And so, there isn't CRPs out there to be able, that have experience working with VR. They're really, that's who I reserve my programming for is teachers and paras. A lot of times paras will do the thing too. Plus, by having a teacher vendor, I know that the people I'm contracting with have been fingerprinted. The school knows they have to get a sign-off from the school that they're doing these activities as after-school activities. And so I'm dealing with professional people that I don't have to worry about the safety of the kids with.
Great, thanks. And we're really running out of time. I just want to see if we can get a couple more questions in. One of the questions is, are the programs culturally relevant? I'd love you to talk about the in-depth cultural relevancy, but we don't. That would be probably another whole presentation. But just quickly, you want to touch the surface there?
Yeah, I realize that when you think of Alaska, you probably think, oh, Eskimos. Well, it's not all Eskimos. There's lots of different kinds of Alaska natives, Inupiats, Tlingit and Haida, and they all have different cultures. Me as just a white guy sitting in Juneau can't design a culturally relevant program. So if you read through my teacher's manuals, what I encourage the teacher to do is, your students, the cultural norms in your area and stuff better than I do. Please feel free to incorporate that kind of thing into what you're teaching.
Great, thanks. There's a question here about losing social benefits. There's a concern about losing social benefits due to owning a business. How has your state supported those young persons with disabilities keep the Medicaid or SSI during establishing a business? Again, a whole topic on work incentives, but do you want to address that really quickly?
Really this is pre-ETS. and it is an introduction to small business. The Jobs Club is an introduction to, to that. When we get more to the I want to pursue self-employment as a DVR consumer, we have benefits analysts here that provide a benefits analysis and assistance with benefits in the self-employment area. But, for Jobs Club, it's simply an introduction.
Did we lose you?
No, I'm still here. I'm just done talking.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, okay. You finished quickly. We're actually, our hour is up, so obviously if people want to jump off, I think we'll just stay on for a couple more minutes in case anyone wants to finish these questions. And then we'll also post answers to the questions in the archive as well. Anything we don't get to, or you're welcome to email myself, and I can connect you with Jim, and he's usually really happy to talk to other states and other organizations. Someone asked if your curriculum's available. We already mentioned that. It's fully downloadable. It's not copyrighted. Where does market research fit into the 5-module course?
It's touched on briefly in, I think, module number 2. I got to get it a little bigger there. I think it's module 2. You have market research. Realize, introduction here.
Yeah. I can probably answer this question really quickly. Do you have contracted providers who pay sub-minimum wages? It's now illegal to do that in the state of Alaska. They passed that under their Employment First and their legislation. So the answer would be no. I am the employment specialist for a post-secondary transition program. Would I qualify as a teacher for school store? That might be a question to email with a bit more information, you think?
Right.
Do you know if there's a similar program in New York City? Pre-employment transition services under WIOA for vocational rehabilitation exists and is in the law nationwide, but how each state chooses to implement that is different. So whether they have something specifically similar, I'm not sure about that, but we could probably connect you with someone that has more information on that if you want to know. Funding sources for these programs, pretty much all of what you've talked about today fall under the pre-employment transition services funding under Voc Rehab. Is that correct, Jim?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. And then thank you. It was a great session. And I think we're already a couple of minutes over, so we'll end. I see most people leaving. Here are our contact information. Again, that'll be posted and archived, so don't feel like you have to scribble it down really quickly. I'm Nikki Powis. If you contact me, I can connect you with Jim, answer further questions, and any that we didn't get to, we will respond, like I said, in a sort of Q&A that we archive along with the presentation. So thank you, Jim. Thank you, the rest of the members of our great community of practice team. Thanks, Shannon and Al, for your wonderful technical assistance. And we will say goodbye for today.